Yeah. I know I'm hungry as well. I'm just like, oh my gosh, can I like dip out and go like fish and chips? This looks nice. Sleepy towns produce dreamers, and I think Kimberley is definitely an example of that in a lot of ways. Johannesburg, it teaches you grit. You have to come here and almost fight for your life because no one is going to hold your hand, no one is going to cuddle you on your way there. There was really no one to support me, so I was just out here on my own, without much resource, without money, without family. You really have to be incredibly proud of where you're from. My name is Thebe Magugu. I'm a fashion designer based in South Africa, and we're here at my studios in downtown Johannesburg. I was born and raised in Kimberley, a very small mining town in the Northern Cape. I grew up with a really incredible, very loving family who all were very fashion conscious, even if, we couldn't afford the latest trends. I think you could just see it in the way they interacted with the clothes that they had already. And when you see people engage with appearance and what they present and what they want to look like so often, I think naturally that would have informed me as well as I started thinking about fashion because I saw its power all around me through my family. Hey, Ntombi. So there was a bit of drama with this item. I wanted to create a shirt dress that has this white and green fabric on top. The colors were slightly off, so we had to send back to receive a swatch, and hopefully it is the same. Perfect, yeah, it's the same level of green now, because we were really missing that yellow. What I liked doing as a child was anything that gave me a sort of creative release. And it wasn't necessarily just drawing, whether it was writing or like taking my mother's phone and going outside and taking photos. I think anything that just felt like a creative output is what I enjoyed doing as a child. So along the walls of my office, I wanted to put up things that really mean the world to me because the pandemic had disrupted schools, especially in Kimberley, where I'm from. We created a special Thebe Magugu X Adidas mask that we then handed out to various schools in the township. I remember the first time I started Crash, they asked everyone to just draw whatever they want on a blank sheet of paper. And I remember immediately drawing a dress. And obviously at that age, a dress is like a red triangle. So nothing really set in stone. I think it's later on I would come to know that as my first sort of fashion sketch in a way, even if it was a basic figure. My family situation was quite unique. We were a lot of people in the house. It was my grandmother, my grandfather, my mother, her sisters, her brothers. So it was quite a big family. And even though I didn't have any siblings, it was just amazing to be surrounded by so many personalities because you almost take from each. Even though, Kimberley has its downside, it's quite rough. Growing up in that home space, I felt quite safe. So this is my office. I decided to paint it like a guava pink because that's really one of my favorite colors, and I find that in the space my favorite color really calms me. And this way we work on patterns and design ideation, and that is Baledi, my incredible production manager. And then these two images are also from one of my first campaigns ever. I think when you walk in, it's quite nostalgic. These beautiful images that look like they were taken in like 50s, 60s. And then to welcome people, just to flick through my first publishing project called Upbringing Extension, which is a book that puts people from back home in the collection. There's this idea that no matter where you are in the world, I'm always with my family. And a lot of the people in this book, a lot of people from back home are the people who first informed my own aesthetic and the things that I'm attracted to. It's one of my favorite images, so strong, so regal. And what's incredible about this is that my mom bought this bizarre coffee table that has a sort of glass over it, and it just sits at home. And Kristen had seen that if you upturn it, it could just add to this really almost bizarre image. The relationship with my mother, extremely close. She really almost made it her mission. You know, she sacrificed so much to allow me to enjoy doing what I do in fashion. One of my earliest memories was when I came home from junior school one day, and on my table in my room was this very big sketchbook. And that was really meaningful to me. I think it almost was her way of accepting that this is what it is. And then from that moment on, she made sure that I'm practicing every day. I want to hate the stockings, but they're actually really nice. It was just very motivating, you know, when someone sees your own vision for yourself and allows that to grow in you. When it comes to my dad, I think he possibly struggled a bit more with who I was and what I wanted to become. I remember one of my aunts had told me sometimes my mom would buy me something really fantastic and fabulous and colorful. Sometimes you'd have a problem with it. I think on a few occasions he'd return some of the clothes my mom had bought, feeling like this might be too feminine or too directional. I'm really excited about my new collection that I'll be showing at the Victoria and Albert Museum. It's basically this idea of taking discarded clothing from the landfills and the markets all around Johannesburg and sort of how they trickled down into those spaces, pushing them back up into a luxury space. We had photographed quite a few pieces that we had collected at the markets and then had them printed on, say, like silk, you know? So it's this idea of what's real and what's not, and like things that were often seen as not worthy anymore, finding that sort of dignity again. It's one of my favorite pieces, actually. It was sporadic moments that led me to want to go into fashion. Yeah, in the townships, about like what you're wearing and how you present and how you look. Like all those ideals already started informing that direction. But also when we got DSTV for the first time, one of the first shows that came on was FTV. I think it was a Marc Jacobs show. When I saw all these things around me on TV and in my family, like I just knew that I wanted to go into that direction. Yeah, let's try it on. Let's try it on. Let's try it on. When it came down to start making decisions about where I would go study, because I saw fashion a lot through TV, I think things like that always point to the fact that fashion can only then happen in these global spaces. It can only happen in New York, can only happen in Milan, in London, in Paris, because that's what I saw through the TV. And you know, one of my dream places to go and study was Central St. Martin's. I think just based off of the prestige and based off of the fact that so many designers who have changed the face of fashion studied at Central St. Martin's. And I was like, yeah, that's my next trajectory. I'm going to go to London. I'm going to go into the fashion industry there, and I'm going to be like this global star, you know. 3 weeks later, they had sent back a decision letter from Central St. Martin's. And I remember I opened it and my mom was there and we were excited. And when we opened it, it said, unfortunately, you have not made it into the BA fashion course at Central St. Martin's. And I think after I picked up my heart from the floor, there was this TV show called Cream Cartel following here in Joburg, a group of 4 fashion enthusiasts. On the show, they mentioned this fashion school in Johannesburg called Lysof. After discussing it with my mother, I was like, let's apply there. Let's see if I'll get in. They had responded quite positively and said that, you know, we'd love to have you. When I got there, it was so special seeing people like me for the first time. Oh wow, here's like a creative fashion community for me. It was incredible. I learned so much about the industry and the back end of the industry. When you're growing up being interested in fashion, I think you're looking at the front end. You're looking at the fabulosity, the parties, the fashion shows, you know, but when you formalize and go to school for it, you really get to know the even bigger back end of it. At some point, we couldn't really afford to go to Lysof, like halfway during my tuition. But I think I was so passionate, and my mother as well was so passionate, that we, you know, made it work until the very end when I did finally graduate. So we're here at my production space, working on my latest collection, which I'm very, very excited for. but there's a lot of work to do. So right now we have to go to Victoria Yards where I do some of my pleating and some of my screen printing to just get some assets done on some of the shirts and the skirts. I cobbled money together and moved to Johannesburg to a very small apartment in Gandhi Square, possibly the size of this carpet, where I would do my patterns on one side of the room and then sleep on the other side with a small basin. I can look back on it now and laugh, but like when you're in it, it's quite harrowing. Sort of decide between eating or buying 1 meter of Dutch satin for you to work from and make a sample from. But I was happy, because I was getting to do what I love. As I was sort of struggling to find my feet and make my way, I had to then ask quite a few friends for help and support. But what is beautiful about that is that when I started finding my community and the friends that I have today who really could have my back during my most difficult times. And I think that's when a lot of my collaborators that I work with even today really came into view, because they were around me during that time when things weren't so great. So right now we're at Victoria Yards, which is actually down the road from my studio where I do some of my pleating and my screen printing and a lot of other processes as well. And I always love coming here because I think everyone is so interested in helping one another. I could just step into any one of these studio spaces and everyone is so willing to help. And I think things like that are really important to push an industry forward. What I find brilliant and what I feel like is what's fascinating the world all over right now about South Africa and the creative industries here is the fact that they're merging their sort of heritage and the culture and their personal individualized experience with the sort of globalized worldview. And I think when those two things come together, it forms such an exciting, never seen before aesthetic and output I think the world right now can't get enough of. We're having a really magical moment right now. Dumela. Hi, Fadzi. So today kina batla go etsa sunray.
Sunray?
Yeah, sunray with this pistachio green fabric. Oh yeah, the lines are very sharp.
Yeah.
So right now they're setting the fabric between the pleated templates. And once this is really intricately put in between each groove, that's gonna get rolled up. And then it's going to go into a sort of oven where the pleats in the template will then set in the grooves. And then when you take it out, it's this beautiful pleated panel. And it's such intricate work because even if you miss just one groove, the whole panel gets damaged. So it's very labor-intensive work and you have to be quite careful. When I started the brand, I loved this idea that people almost associate the Thebe Magugu brand with this idea of an institution where season after season we explore subjects or how people know university subjects. So we'd have genealogy, we'd have geology. I have a very deep respect for education. I think that was a really good way to tell really unique stories that we've experienced. That's why I almost like to think of the clothes as being relics that sort of gets passed down so that certain individuals, certain stories never be forgotten. I always love coming here. It really means the world to me because these people, they really supported the brand from the get-go. They believed in the brand and what I was trying to build from when I didn't even believe in it myself. That's why I'll always cherish it and always sort of make sure that some elements in my collection comes from them. Winning the LVMH Prize was a dream come true. I've been following it ever since it started. I had never applied for all those years. You know, you have these ruminations in your head that say like, you're a kid from the tip of Africa trying to compete with people who went to the best of the best schools and are in places where fashion has had years to sort of thrive. In 2019, when I did apply, someone just told me, what's the worst that could happen? No could literally be the worst that could happen and you're not gonna die. Your organs aren't going to fail. On the one end, I think it is incredible. You know, I think the thing every designer needs, especially emerging labels is resources and visibility. Winning the LVMH Prize came with both. I think people who had no idea who we were suddenly, getting emails from stores that we've always wanted to be a part of, people we've always admired. So like on that end, it has been really incredible. But then that also comes with quite a lot of pressures that I actually wasn't expecting, and certain instances of racism, strangely enough. And I say that because shortly after I won, I remember I was in Milan and someone walked up to me and said that I only won the prize because I'm Black, and Black people in fashion now are having a moment. It really just opened my eyes to a lot of things. In the past, I always look at fashion as this incredibly glorious industry that I'm desperate to be a part of, to the point where I was trying to think of ways I could twist and contort myself to be allowed a seat at the table, to feel like I belong. But these past few months and these past few years, I had to realize also that for me to survive in fashion and engage with it the way that I want to, I almost have to set up my own templates, and it's a big reason why I had to step back even last season, because I realized that I was running at such a pace trying to be part of this industry, riding on hamster wheel, that I was overlooking my needs not only as a person, but as a business as well. I can't compare myself to designers in Europe or in London. I have to make it work within my context. So last season, I took a break to reconsider my production, and it was the best thing that I've ever done for myself, because now I feel like I can healthily engage in fashion and have the confidence to just come hello high water, just be in my own universe and the space that I've carved out for myself and my brand. And I think the beauty of that is that whether you get criticized, whether you're not flavor of the season or the month, you still are so satisfied in yourself because all your motivations are internally motivated and you're not trying to claw in to be part of something by force. I always say you have to go where you're loved. And I think that's my current mind state. And I've really never been happier than I am now, engaging in fashion the way I am now. This color's perfect. So today we're at the screen printing place and we're going to do a screen print of my sisterhood emblem. But instead of it being solid, it almost looks degraded in some sense, like a vintage effect on the screen print. And we're going to use this beautiful minty pistachio green color as the paint. It's a headlining color in the collection, so it only makes sense. When it comes to production, when it comes to certain issues around quality, we're still finding our feet. And I think that has been the sort of challenging part, like knowing exactly what I want, say, for example, in terms of production, but then going to factories here who would stitch something and be like, on the outside, it's nice, but it's a little skew on the inside, but no one will see that, and having to teach people that that's not how you think, especially of a luxury product. A lecturer of mine always used to say, if you're going to construct something, say a jacket, you have to be able to wear it inside out, and for it to still be aesthetically pleasing, the entire product from start to finish, inside and out, has to be of an exceptional quality. We are soldiering on, but I would say that has been certainly one of the most difficult parts of operating a luxury brand from a space that isn't necessarily of a luxury background. Hopes and dreams for my own brand, quite ambitious, but I love the idea of being a legacy brand based on the continent. I think so many people are working towards that, especially now as Africans find their voice in telling their story from their own sort of POV. My dream is to really create a brand that doesn't alienate people who aren't from here. So whether you're sitting in Japan, whether you're sitting in Mexico, you can still see yourself in my universe.